Hey, so guys, Roxall here. You may have noticed in the newly released Overwatch Classic game mode that Assault, or 2CP, returned with all the classic changes and classic pains. In this video, we're going to be talking about the history of this removed main game mode and the idea of how exactly it would play out in the Overwatch 2 5v5 format if it still existed. Like always, we'll start from the beginning. The game mode came out with the release of Overwatch 1 and had 3 maps, those being Hanamura, Temple of Anubis, and Volskaya Industries. Hanamura shows off a suburban area located in Tokyo, Japan, and presents the iconic Shimada Castle shown in the Dragons animated short. Temple of Anubis is held within the Giza Plateau of Egypt, and is what many consider a valuable archaeological area. In reality, though, it is what houses the rogue AI Anubis, which caused the first Omnic crisis. Volskaya Industries takes place in St. Petersburg, Russia, and is a facility that produces the Svytogar mechs. These giant human-piloted mechs are what protected Russia during the first Omnic crisis, and they can be seen doing very epic things on the outskirts of the map. The game mode itself played like this in comp. Similar to Hybrid and Escort, there's an attacking team and a defending team. On release, the attackers got 5 minutes to capture the first point, and if they succeed, they gain 5 additional minutes to attack point B. If they also capture that point, the teams switch sides and the defenders must match the opposing team's capture progress to win or continue the match. This continues until one team gains more capture progress than the other. The first significant change the game mode got was a decrease in time for sudden death on Assault/Hybrid/Escort maps. If you don't know what sudden death was, it was pretty much how Overwatch originally decided draw scenarios. For example, both teams capture the first objective on an Assault map and are at 1 point. Sudden death then begins, and for these maps it has a whole coin flip to decide who is attacking or defending. The attacking team then gets 1 minute and 45 seconds to attack. If they capture the first point, they win. Otherwise, if the defending team stops them, they win. This patch made it so all maps have a different time requirements instead of just the base 1 minute 45. It was actually reduced across the board for Assault maps, where Hanamura and Volskaya were reduced to 1 minute 35 seconds, and Anubis was put down to 1 minute 30 seconds. Eventually, 2 months later, this whole sudden death aspect of the game was removed. With this removal, they made adjustments to how time works on Assault maps, reducing the amount of time gained for taking an objective from 5 minutes to 4. On July 21st, 2016, they did a similar thing. Now it was a general change for the first point, from again 5 minutes down to 4 to take the first point. Then after a simple change of reducing the time to choose heroes between rounds, there was a pretty significant change of spawn times of defenders increasing when attackers outnumbered them. This change applied to Assault, Escort, and Hybrid maps. The dev note pretty much said this was to counter the very common strategy of just throwing yourself at the objective to stall defenders. Next up was a change that the devs say was to mitigate draws, and that was a tracking system for Assault points. This is pretty much what we have now on Hybrid, to where now if you don't fully capture the objective, your progress is saved, and the other team must reach that progress to win. When this was released, though, it would track your progress even below 33%. This was eventually changed, however. As the devs said, many found it confusing if a team captured like 1%. Then just a month later after this change was implemented on June 20th, 2017, a new Assault map called Horizon Lunar Colony was added to the game. This map was the first and only map that doesn't take place on Earth. Rather, it is a moon colony created by Luchang Interstellar. The colony was a place where many genetic experiments were conducted to test how life would react to prolonged periods in space. Both Winston and Hammond, or Wrecking Ball, were created from these experiments. In Escape to Earth during an uprising other animals had against the humans there. An interesting change was made in September the same year, where the 3 original Assault maps were removed from Deathmatch and Team Deathmatch game modes in the arcade. I'm not personally sure why they did this, as I don't see any explanation anywhere from them online. My only guess is that there was already so many custom-made deathmatch maps they weren't really necessary, but to this day you can still use these maps in custom games for these game modes. After the UI was improved to actually show individual segments on an objective, along with the amount of attackers and defenders on it, Horizon Lunar Colony already got a major rework on June 26, 2018. To sum it all up, it pretty much made the first point a lot more difficult for attackers, but easier for defenders by removing attacking routes and making the high ground more protected. The second point was made a bit more difficult for defenders to constantly stall, but giving them better options to defend. Along with some even further increases to defenders' spawn time, Assault was finally matched to 4 minutes from 5 in non-competitive game modes. In the year after, on February 19th, 2019, the last new Assault map was added, Paris. This map is where a lot of the civil unrest happened during the Omnic crisis, and as seen in the 0 Hour animated short, was one of the first major places Null Sector attacked. Now on November 5th, 2019, was when I would say the biggest downfall of this game mode started to happen. This is because it was the day map pools were introduced in competitive, and the maps that just so happened to be removed this time around were Horizon Lunar Colony in Paris. The community celebrated this big time across the board, and even after map pools were removed, the devs decided they should just make Horizon and Paris being gone a permanent feature for comp. In March the following year, they made some changes to reduce attacking times again in Assault, Hybrid, and Escort modes. This was done by reducing the amount of time kept after both teams capture everything over 2 minutes. Then after, they did a big Assault game mode experiment in the old experimental card, which was something that was pretty much a quick play hack, but on its own separate card if you didn't know. The changes they did to Assault here were very interesting. It made it so teams have to actually take turns capturing each point. For example, Team 1 gets 6 minutes to capture point A, and if they succeed, teams switch sides and Team 2 now has to get to point A within 6 minutes. If they also succeed, it now switches to point B, and this process repeats until one team captures more points than the other. This was an interesting attempt to fix the game mode, as it did prevent the snowball problem that was so common in 2CP. However, this format created a lot of other issues. Like sometimes you would just never see ultimates since rounds ended so quickly, and the base problems of 2CP map design were still here, with impossible to push through chokes and some very fast attack captures. An interesting attempt, but it was still not to be. After this, no changes were made to 2CP for 2 whole years, as patches were just really slow in general in the 2020 to 2022 time period for a multitude of reasons. Final ever change to 2CP I could find was of course Paris and Horizon getting removed from quick play just like comp, because they were just that awful. And finally on Overwatch 2's release, Assault was removed completely and replaced with Push. Now we can finally get into my thoughts of this game mode, and if it could all work in Overwatch 2 if it came back. I'm actually glad this Overwatch Classic mode came out as I was making this video, as I was able to be reminded just how awful these maps were to play on for me. On quick play rules especially, the game could just be over in 2 seconds as defenders, or if you are attacking, it could feel impossible to get through the first choke. The thing about these maps was that defenders are purposely given an insane advantage, and attackers must play really slow and precise to have a chance to get through. Once they do get through, as I said, the game can be instantly over really soon after due to a snowball effect. Defenders stalling on second point can get pretty insane too, almost as bad as that last point clash stall at times. Now getting this to work in Overwatch 2 I personally think would just end up having the same problems. It would feel a little better in 5v5 since you don't have 2 tanks and insane healing holding a choke point, but it would still have many of the problems I just mentioned I think. You can actually get a really good idea on how this would feel attacking on hybrid maps, as the first point has those same 2CP rules. From my experience, it is still a huge pain for both sides, especially if one teammate just happens to get picked off by let's say a Junkrat while you're attacking. The fight is pretty much over and you probably have to do a hard reset to have a chance. As I said, these assault game modes require a lot of precision and teamwork to get through on attack, which isn't that fun unless you are 5 stacking or something. You probably had those games on defense too, or let's say on King's Row you go against the Widow who takes that top spot, and then she just assassinates one of your teammates and you get steamrolled first point. It's just not a fun experience unless you're extremely coordinated to me, which is just rare with the Overwatch randos. I will say the visual design of these maps are all some of the best this game has ever shown to me to this day, and I'm glad they're going back to these for the Clash game mode. I did like some of the unique gameplay features some of the maps had too, like moving platforms and flank routes only accessible to certain heroes. To sum it all up, there are a few things I do miss from Overwatch 1, but this goofy game mode is not one of them. That's going to conclude my thoughts and the history of the 2CP or Assault game mode. You can let me know what you think of this game mode in the comments, and if it could actually work for Overwatch 2. Thank you all for the epic support as always, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Rocks go, rocks go. All I want to do is stream all night. Lobby full, rocks go. Never gonna play with me, but it's alright. He thinks I'm a roadhog, he thinks I'm a main, he thinks I'm a sinner, but that's okay. Rocks go, rocks go. All I want to do is stream all night.